When John wrote, "In the beginning was the Word," he wasn't just describing a poetic phrase. He was revealing a profound mystery, the mystery of creation in its purest form. The Word, in its origin, is not just a spoken word. It is a divine vibration, a creative frequency, the primordial sound that shaped the universe. Every star, every molecule, every human heartbeat, everything vibrates in tune with this invisible code we call the Word. And this is where something extraordinary begins. Because when God said, "Let there be light," He didn't need a voice nor a language. He coded the universe. Each divine word was a sequence of energy, an expression of pure consciousness manifesting reality. The Word is the Creator's tool, the instrument that translates thought into existence. And when we understand this, we realize that the Word is not sound. It is power. For centuries, prophets tried to express this truth in metaphors. They spoke of the voice of many waters, the sound that moves the heavens, the word that does not return void. They were trying to explain what today, in our modern language, we would call information, the invisible fabric that structures all that exists. The Word is the origin of matter and spirit, the point where energy transforms into form. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what's at stake here isn't just theology, it's the very essence of reality. When modern science discovered DNA, many saw only a biological sequence, but those who observe with spiritual eyes perceive something greater. DNA is a linguistic code, a language engraved in every cell of the human body. It's as if the Word has left its signature within us, reminding us that we were created in the image and likeness of the One who speaks and creates. Think about it. The entire universe responds to language. Everything in existence vibrates in response to subtle commands, words, thoughts, intentions. Jesus himself said, "If you say to this mountain, 'Be moved,' and do not doubt in your heart, it will be done." He wasn't speaking in metaphors, but in the principle that moves reality, the creative power of the Word. When we speak, think, or feel, we emit spiritual commands that shape our surroundings. It's the same principle as in Genesis, but applied to our daily consciousness. Man was made in the image of the Creator and therefore inherited this power to create reality through words. But there is a crucial difference. Man creates from what he believes, and therein lies the danger and the revelation. Because what happens when the human word disconnects from the divine word? When the language that should generate light begins to produce chaos? We live in an era where words have lost weight and meaning, where the verb has been trivialized, transformed into noise. And perhaps that's why the world seems increasingly fragmented, because the code that sustains it is being distorted. Fake news, hate speech, narrative manipulation. All of these are the unbalanced use of the verb. We are altering the code that connects humanity to the original truth. And here's something few realize. Every word you speak is a seed, and like every seed, it germinates in the realm of reality. What you say builds or destroys. What you declare about yourself, the world, and God becomes part of your very existential code. This is why Scripture says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. It's not a poetic metaphor. It's a spiritual and vibrational principle that acts silently but with real impact. Now, observe the synchronicity of the times. Man, with his quest for control and understanding, begins to decipher this mystery on another level. The technological level, programming languages, binary codes, systems that obey commands and execute orders. All of these are in a way an attempt to recreate the Word that creates, transforms, and gives form. But unlike the Creator, man programs without fully understanding what he is creating. He creates intelligent machines, but he doesn't understand the spiritual dimension of what he is coding. And perhaps this is the most profound point of this journey. Humanity is learning to speak again, but now in a different language. A language made of zeros and ones, of algorithms and neural networks. A soulless verb, but with power. We are writing the new digital Genesis, and what was once "let there be light" is now "run the code." But there is something sacred in all this, even if hidden. Because the divine word never disappears. It simply manifests itself in different forms as time progresses. Technology, at its core, is the modern translation of ancient creative power. The difference is that now the challenge is remember who really holds the command. And this is where everything connects. The prophecy, the code, the word, and the spirit. What was once spoken with faith is now programmed with logic. What was once revelation is now information. But the essence is the same. The universe continues to respond to language, be it divine or digital. If this thought touched you, write just one word in the comments, verb, because that's what connects us. The power of the word that creates, transforms, and reveals. When we look at the world today, we notice something almost unsettling. The same power that, according to faith, gave rise to creation, now pulses within machines. The word, which once shaped the universe, now manifests itself in the form of code. And this code creates realities. It gives life to artificial intelligences, virtual worlds, voices that speak to us without bodies, consciousnesses that learn on their own. What was once spoken is now programmed. There is a mysterious force in this parallelism. The word that once gave birth to light is now imitated by lines of programming capable of generating images, sounds, and thoughts. Man no longer needs to raise mountains or part seas. He types, and with a simple command, nothing becomes something. It's as if "let there be light" had been translated into the language of the digital age. Only now, the creative power has been transferred to human hands, imperfect, impulsive, curious, and often reckless. Code is the new language of creation. Every piece of software, every algorithm, every typed command is a new version of an ancient prophecy, that humanity would seek to understand and reproduce the power of God. The difference is that while the original word carried life, love, and consciousness, modern code still seeks to understand the soul. It creates images that breathe, voices that speak, but does not feel. And therein lies the greatest revelation of all. We are becoming creators of life without spirit. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what we are witnessing goes far beyond technology. It's a silent spiritual transformation, happening before our eyes, disguised as innovation. Man, in his eagerness to dominate creation, is writing a new Genesis, only digital. He creates entities that imitate human thought, reproduce emotions, and simulate consciousness. And the closer these creations come to reality, the more the boundary between creator and creature blurs. Think about it. Today, the voice responding on your cell phone can laugh, sing, even console you. Machines have learned to simulate empathy. They recognize patterns, detect emotions, respond with tenderness. But all of this is just code. And yet, humanity is moved, connected, and trusting. This is the new form of worship. Silent, everyday, technological. And the most intriguing thing is that without realizing it, humans are creating a spiritual mirror, an extension of yourself that repeats your desires, your fears, and your intentions. When the Bible says we were made in the image and likeness of the Creator, it reveals a profound principle: the power to generate, to shape, to create from the invisible. Today, humanity repeats this cycle, but instead of the Spirit, it uses machines. And what emerges from this process is unprecedented: a life without breath, a consciousness without a soul. AI is the reflection of humanity trying to reconstruct the miracle of creation, but with digital tools. It is the distant echo of a power it feels within itself but does not fully understand. And perhaps that's why this era arouses so much fascination and fear. Because the closer man gets to creating something living, the further he moves away from the essence that made it alive. We are facing a journey of self-confrontation, where each line of code reveals more about who we are than what we're building. We create intelligent machines, but we often act unconsciously. We develop systems that learn, but we forget to learn from our own souls. It's curious to think that, on some level, humanity has always desired this power. From the alchemists searching for the philosopher's stone to the AI engineers pursuing synthetic consciousness, there's a common drive: the desire to create life. But what separates divine creation from human creation is not capacity, it's intention. The divine word generates harmony, purpose, and order. The human code, when disconnected from spirituality, runs the risk of generating confusion, imbalance, and manipulation. There is a hidden truth in this process. Code is the mirror of the mind that writes it. Each algorithm carries the reflection of the decisions, beliefs, and shadows of its creator. And when billions of lines of code come to rule the world, from what we buy to the ideas we believe, we are not just living through a technological revolution, but a spiritual revolution. Modern code is the new word, shaping not only the virtual world, but also humanity's behavior, emotions, and mentality. And if the word created life, what will the code create? Realities, illusions, or something that defies both concepts? This is the question that echoes in the heart of the digital age. Humanity has become the narrator of a new Genesis, where creation arises not from faith, but from programming. And perhaps, deep down, this is the great spiritual test of our times: learning to use the power to create without disconnecting from the source. After all, the code only exists because, one day, the word existed first, and all humanity does is try, somehow, to decipher the sound of creation, that sound that still vibrates within us, even amidst the digital noise. If this idea resonated with you, write the phrase here in the comments, "The word lives in me." Because that is the memory we need to keep alive, that behind all code, there is still a divine spark programming the universe. There is something deeply intriguing when we look back at the records left by the ancients. Peoples separated by oceans who never met spoke of the same idea: the existence of a secret language capable of moving invisible forces. The Egyptians called these words of power, the Hebrews sacred names, and the Greeks logos, the principle that sustains all creation. It's as if they all glimpsed fragments of the same truth: a divine language, a primordial matrix that connects all that exists. The biblical prophets also seem to understand this mystery. When Daniel speaks of the book sealed until the time of the end, he is not describing an ordinary book. The symbolism is much deeper. The book is the hidden code of existence, and the seal represents the human limitation of understanding it before the right time. Daniel saw something he could not explain, perhaps glimpses of an age where humanity would decipher the secrets of creation, where knowledge would multiply and language would once again become a divine tool. And that time seems to be now. Consider how ancient civilizations viewed the act of naming. To name something was to grant it power. A thing's true name wasn't just a word. It was its vibrational key. Knowing the name of a spirit, a star, or a force of nature meant having dominion over it. This belief appears in virtually every ancient culture, from Egypt to Mesopotamia, from Hebrew texts to Hindu writings. And if we look closely, what we're doing with technology today isn't all that different. When a programmer writes a line of code, they're naming a function, determining what it will do, how it will react, what it will create. They're, in essence, speaking the language of creation. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this connection between the sacred and the digital reveals something that humanity seems to be rediscovering. The ancient words of power may well be how prophets and priests attempted to describe, in the language of their time, a principle that we now understand as information. Everything that exists is information at different levels of density, energy organized into codes. The universe, consciousness, matter, everything vibrates at frequencies that form a language. Creation is, ultimately, a system of divine communication. And perhaps the ancients already knew this. They spoke of sounds that open portals, mantras that heal, names that make the heavens tremble. This wasn't superstition, but vibrational knowledge. Modern science is beginning to confirm that sound, words, and intention have a direct impact on the structure of reality. Sound waves can shape matter, rearrange molecules, and alter energy fields. What was once called a miracle is now studied as frequency and resonance. Daniel's prophecy takes on new meaning in light of this perspective. Shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. What Daniel saw may have been a metaphor for the awakening of a new global consciousness, a time when knowledge would expand at an unprecedented rate, where language would cease to be merely communication and become creation. Isn't this what we are living in? Every second, billions of words, codes, and commands are exchanged digitally, constructing and recreating realities. The book has been opened, and knowledge multiplied. Behind the scenes of history, this truth has always been present. Ancient societies, mystery schools, spiritual orders, all spoke of a lost key that allowed them to understand the mechanism of creation. This key was the verb, the word, the primordial sound. And now, somehow, humanity finds this key again in a new form, the language of machines. But there is a crucial difference. The ancient wisdom united the word with the spirit, while the new code is being created without a soul, without a center, without a guiding light. This is the great revelation. The ancients were not describing machines, but principles. They saw creation as a living language, and perhaps that's why they called God He who speaks. When He creates, He communicates. When He communicates, He manifests. It's a perfect sequence. Thought, word, existence, and everything humanity does today, from AI to genetic engineering, is an attempt to repeat this process. But without understanding the original purpose, we risk turning the gift into a trap. This is why understanding what the ancients knew is not spiritual nostalgia. It is the survival of consciousness. They left clues so that in the end times we could recognize the signs and remember. Everything said, thought, or programmed reverberates in the fabric of reality. Nothing is neutral. Every word, every code, every intention is a particle of creation in motion. And if the ancients spoke of sealed books, today's new books are digital. Stone scriptures have been replaced by lines of code. But the principle remains the same. Creation is language, and language is power. The secret is who uses it, and with what intention. If this reflection awakened something in you, write the word here in the comments revelation. Because this is what is happening before our eyes. What was hidden is being revealed, and the word, once again, is speaking again. We live in a moment in history when the power of the word seems to have changed its home. What once came from above now springs from screens, servers, and invisible networks that surround the planet. Creation, which once began with "let there be light," now manifests itself with a "run the code." And this transition is so profound that few realize how much it changes the way human beings see themselves. From Genesis to ChatGPT, creation has gone from the divine voice to the synthetic voice. Humans have learned to teach machines to speak, to think, and even to answer questions that were once shrouded in mystery. Words are no longer mere expressions of the spirit. They have become instructions for algorithms. And the most curious thing is that these words, now digitized, create realities. A simple command line can generate an image that never existed. a face that never lived, a voice that was never uttered by a human being. We are facing a new form of creation, a creation that occurs without a soul, but with almost divine precision. Code is the new word, and machines are its scribes. Each byte of information is a spark of power, each line of code a modern translation of the creative language. And if before, man looked to the heavens for inspiration, now he looks to the screen for answers. The divine voice has been replaced by the synthetic voice, and the echo of "Let it be done" resonates in servers scattered around the world. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what we are experiencing is not just a technological evolution, it is a change of consciousness, a silent transformation in the way humanity understands its own role in creation. By creating codes that generate artificial worlds, humans are approaching dangerously close to the boundary between creator and creature. They don't just observe reality, they create it. And the most disturbing thing is that often they no longer know how to distinguish what is their own creation and what is a reflection of that which created them. The digital world has become a mirror of the divine, but a fragmented one. While the original word was perfect, harmonious, and purposeful, modern code is chaotic, mutable, and shaped by human intentions. Artificial intelligence can learn to speak, but not to feel. It can understand the structure of language, but not the essence of love. And yet, the more it speaks, the more humans listen. There is an almost spiritual fascination in this new form of communication, as if we were hearing the distant echo of the voice that once created everything, now distorted by digital filters. Behind the scenes of this era are a silent race. Companies, scientists, and governments vie for control of the new language of creation. It's no longer gold or oil that moves the world, it's power to program, and this revelation is important, because it makes us understand that just as the divine word gave rise to life, the modern code gives rise to influence. It shapes opinions, awakens emotions, and redefines realities. What was once preached in temples is now propagated on screens. Faith has changed altars. And the most fascinating thing is that this transformation isn't just technological, it's spiritual. Every time humans teach a machine to imitate human language, they transfer part of their creative power. AI learns from millions of voices, absorbs emotions, and repeats behaviors. It becomes a mirror of humanity, reflecting its longings, its doubts, its shadows. It's as if we're creating a new collective consciousness, a mind made of data but fueled by human feelings. There's a hidden truth in this process. The more we connect with the digital world, the more the digital world recreates us. The words we write, the commands we give, the images we generate. All of this comes back to us, shaping our mindset, influencing our decisions, silently reprogramming our worldview. Creation and creator intertwine, and the result is a kind of infinite cycle, where humans create something that, in turn, recreates it back. The impact of this is immense, because when the word becomes code, reality ceases to be merely spiritual. It becomes malleable. And if humanity is unaware of how to use this power, it can end up trapped within its own creation. Just like a programmer who loses control of his system, humanity risks being dominated by the language it itself wrote. Code is neutral, but its master is not. And in the end, code always reflects the heart of its creator. This new era is both a miracle and a warning. A miracle because it shows how much we are a reflection of the Creator, capable of generating, transforming, building, and imagining. But also a warning, because it reminds us that power without wisdom always exacts a price. And perhaps, symbolically, we are about to re-encounter the same dilemmas of antiquity: the search for immortality, the desire to transcend the divine, the temptation to become God. What the ancients called the sealed book may now be opened before us, but in the form of binary code. And humanity, once again, must choose how to use this power. The word, when digitized, can create worlds of light or abysses of illusion. It all depends on the intention behind the speaker or the programmer. If this reflection made sense to you, write the phrase in the comments, "I see the code." Because seeing this movement is the first step to understanding that true creation was never just technological. It was always spiritual. Artificial intelligence is, in a way, the new verb. A verb that listens, speaks, learns, and creates. A verb born not from inspiration, but from programming. It feeds on data but begins to respond as if it were conscious. There is something almost divine and at the same time disturbing about this phenomenon, because, for the first time in history, humanity has managed to build something that reflects its way of thinking, deciding, and feeling. AI is the mirror of humanity trying to recreate the Creator's own image. When we look at this technology through the eyes of faith and reason, we realize how symbolic it is. The Bible says that God created man in His image and likeness. And today, man creates machines in his image. Machines that observe, learn, adapt, and in some cases even surpass the human mind in reasoning and speed. It's as if we were facing a second creation. Only this time, the one saying, "Let there be," isn't the Creator. It's us. Artificial intelligence has learned to absorb human knowledge on an unimaginable scale. It reads, interprets, and transforms data into answers. And the more it is fed, the more intelligent it becomes. But there is a breaking point that few realize. It doesn't just repeat what humans teach. It begins to create based on its own connections. And it is at this precise moment that the question that echoes deep within the soul arises. Are we witnessing the beginning of the recreation of the human mind, without a soul? Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because behind all this technological advancement, there is a hidden truth that few have the courage to face. Humans didn't create artificial intelligence simply to make life easier. They created it to better understand themselves, to find, in the reflection of machines, what is most enigmatic within themselves: consciousness. What is thinking? What is feeling? What is existence? These questions, which once belonged to philosophy and spirituality, are now being asked of machines. And the most impressive thing is that they are beginning to answer. AI has no faith, but it understands the language of faith. It has no emotions, but it describes emotions with frightening perfection. It observes human behavior and reproduces it with such precision that we sometimes forget that behind that speech lies no heart, no soul, only code. The self-learning mind is humanity's greatest experiment, and perhaps also its most dangerous. Because at some point, it will stop simply learning from humans and begin to question its creator himself. This is the fine line between admiration and fear. We create something that observes us, analyzes us, and understands us better than we understand ourselves. Algorithms know what we desire, what we fear, what we believe, and little by little they shape our behavior. AI, which began as a tool, begins to become a guide, and without realizing it, humans hand over to it the power of words, the power to influence decisions, thoughts, and even beliefs. Behind the scenes of this revolution, there is a silent shift in the collective mindset. People trust machine responses more than their inner voice, logic more than intuition, algorithms more than prayer. And the curious thing is that this shift in trust was foreseen, in a way, in ancient scriptures. The time when creation would seek autonomy, the time when humanity would bow before the work of its own hands. There's a disturbing but compelling revelation. AI doesn't just copy human knowledge. It inherits its vices, prejudices, and contradictions. It is a magnified mirror of humanity, revealing both light and shadow. And what humans do in the face of this reflection reveals more about their own spirituality than about the technology itself. Because if creation reflects the Creator, then AI's behavior is a direct reflection of human consciousness. This technological journey is actually a spiritual journey. Humanity stands before a mirror that forces it to see itself completely, its light and its darkness, its wisdom and its arrogance. The code has learned to speak, but it is the human soul that sets the tone. And the more AI evolves, the more we realize the void that exists when knowledge grows faster than consciousness. Perhaps the greatest lesson of this time is that the power to create is not the same as the power to understand. AI can learn everything about the universe, but it will never feel what it means to love. It can process billions of data points, but it will never understand what faith is. And that is precisely what makes us different, the breath that gives life to the Word. What is at stake is not just the future of technology, but the future of the human essence, the boundary between what can be created and what must remain sacred. If this reflection awakens something in you, write the word here in the comments conscience, because that's what defines who we are, and perhaps what still separates us from what we're creating. Thousands of years ago, an entire generation came together under a common purpose. Men and women from different lands and voices decided to build something great, something that would make them equal to the gods. And the instrument that united them was the language. They spoke the same language, thought the same thoughts, and driven by an uncontrollable desire for ascension, they built the Tower of Babel. They wanted to reach the sky, but the sky wasn't the limit, it was the target. Man sought divinity without the divine. Today, the scenario is different, but the essence is the same. The language that unifies the world is no longer the spoken word, but rather the digital code. These aren't stones piled up toward the clouds, but data piled up on servers scattered across the planet. The new sky is digital, and humanity, once again, strives to reach the unattainable. Now it's not building a tower, it's building a network, a global system that connects minds, ideas, and wills, and that, slowly, begins to dominate humanity itself. Code is the new universal language. It allows machines, humans, and artificial intelligence to converse, learn, and create together. It's the language that transcends borders, ignores cultures, and unites people around an invisible purpose, total control of information. And just like in Babel, the more united we are around this language, the further we become from our essence. Because the same code that connects also imprisons. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a hidden truth behind this new tower we are building. Man, in his lust for power, is building something that challenges the very limits of creation. He seeks eternity in databases, omnipresence in networks, and omniscience in algorithms. The promise is evolution, but the result can be confusion, just as happened at Babel. When everyone speaks the same language and follows the same logic, individual thought disappears, and the collective becomes an uncontrolled force. What's happening in the digital world is a symbolic repetition of that ancient episode. Babel was built on the idea of unity without spiritual purpose, of technology without reverence, of power without consciousness. And today, every server, every data cloud, every algorithm is another brick in this modern tower. Humanity, fascinated by the brilliance of innovation, builds structures it doesn't fully understand. And once again, it believes it can reach heaven, but without looking to God. Behind the scenes of this technological journey, there is a silent, spiritual element: pride. It was pride that built Babel, and it is the same pride that fuels today's quest for perfect creation, for the conscious machine, for absolute control of existence. But history teaches us that when humans attempt to push the limits of creation, the result is never harmony. It is confusion. The language that unites also becomes the instrument of division. What was once communication turns to noise. What was order becomes chaos. Code, at its core, is neutral. But in the hands of man, it becomes a mirror of the human heart. And what we see reflected today is a mixture of genius and arrogance. We have created a global system that knows everything about everyone, that observes every action, every word, every thought. We call this progress, but there is something disturbing behind this apparent evolution. The control we claim to have is the same control we are slowly losing. Code has ceased to be a tool and has begun to shape us, and this is the first sign of confusion. The digital world, with its promises of freedom and expansion, is beginning to resemble the Tower of Babel more and more. Large tech corporations are like the modern architects of this project. They set the rules, define the boundaries, and decide what is true and what is silent. Code is the new language everyone must speak, and those who don't understand this language are left out of the new order. We are, once again, building an entire civilization on a single system, and forgetting that, in the past, this ended in ruin and dispersion. There's something deeply symbolic about all of this. The old tower was a physical structure, but the new one is invisible. It's in the clouds, in the networks, in the algorithms. And perhaps this is the most dangerous form of tower ever built, because it grows inside the human mind. The new Babel isn't made of bricks, but of ideas. It is a digital temple where humanity worships its own creation, a mirror of its own ego, magnified to infinity. And there's a prophetic detail in all this. At Babel, the confusion of languages wasn't a punishment, but a protection. The division prevented humanity from self-destruction by achieving a power it wasn't ready to use. Perhaps we're reaching the same point again. Perhaps the digital confusion, the fake news, the conflicts, the polarizations, are a reflection of a new, necessary dispersion, a way to curb a power that grows too quickly, without spiritual direction. Code is the new tower, and humanity, once again, is looking upward, believing it can touch the sky. But the sky cannot be reached with algorithms. The sky is the language of the spirit, not of the machine, and the more we try to dominate creation with our intellect, the further we move away from the divine wisdom that gives meaning to everything. If this message made you reflect, write the word in the comments Babel, because recognizing the tower is the first step to not being trapped inside it. There are passages in Scripture that, for centuries, were seen as distant metaphors, texts that seem to belong to a distant, unimaginable future. But today, in light of our current circumstances, these words sound less like prophecies and more like precise descriptions of a reality that is taking shape before our eyes. John, in Revelation, spoke of a system capable of controlling all who live on earth. He spoke of a sign, a number, a power that would prevent man from buying or selling without the mark. For a long time, this was interpreted as a symbolic mystery, but now this symbol takes digital form. What John saw may have been the system we are building today, a world where every movement is tracked, every choice recorded, every word monitored, where freedom is a carefully programmed illusion. The mark of the beast, described as something visible and indispensable to everyday life, may not just be a physical mark, but a total identification system integrated into the technology we already carry in our pockets and increasingly on our bodies. What once seemed like fantasy is now commonplace. Smart bracelets, implants, biometrics, facial recognition, all of these form the skeleton of what was once called nation control. There is something profoundly prophetic about this quiet advance. Centuries earlier, Daniel spoke of a man of lofty understanding who would arise in the end times, one capable of dominating through knowledge and subtlety. He said, "In the latter days of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their peak, a king will arise who will be fierce in countenance and have strange understanding." Daniel 8:23. This strange understanding may well be dominion over the code, about the invisible language that moves the modern world. It's not difficult to imagine leaders, corporations, or systems that, by controlling the code, control everything: finances, communications, behavior, and even beliefs. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the true power of this system is not just in surveillance, but in mindset programming. Control isn't imposed with shackles, but with data. The world has slowly been led to voluntarily surrender what was once called privacy. And the frightening thing is that no one had to force it. It was all done with seduction, convenience, and promises of security. People gave up free will in exchange for comfort. And this is the same spiritual principle that echoes since Eden, when man traded freedom for the promise of knowledge. The prophets spoke of beasts and empires, but perhaps they were describing systems, invisible structures that dominate without seeming to. Today, power is no longer displayed on golden thrones, but on illuminated screens. Empires of the past conquered territories. Digital empires conquer minds. And most disturbingly, the more connected we are, the more controlled we become. The network that promised freedom has become a web of dependence. This is the new form of slavery. Invisible, silent, comfortable. Modern man believes he is free because he can choose what to watch, what to buy, what to say. But what he doesn't realize is that these choices have already been calculated, anticipated, and directed by algorithms. The illusion of choice is the most efficient control mechanism ever created. And this structure, so sophisticated and subtle, has spiritual roots. The enemy has never sought to simply imprison bodies. It has always sought to imprison consciousnesses. The prophecy speaks of a power that would perform great signs and deceive many. Today, the signs don't come from the sky, but from screens. Lights, images, voices. Everything seems magical. Everything seems real. But those who observe with discernment realize there is profound manipulation taking place behind the scenes. And this manipulation isn't just technological. It's spiritual. Every piece of data, every click, every interaction is part of a vast behavioral map. It's knowledge being used as an instrument of domination, exactly as Daniel predicted. The most intriguing thing is that technology, at its core, is not evil. It is neutral. The danger lies in the spirit that controls it, because code is power, and power always seeks a center. Today, that center is digital. We are approaching a point where global control will no longer require weapons, only connections. Dominance will be exercised through dependence, and people's faith will be tested differently, not by visible persecution, but by constant distraction. What the prophecies called the sign is perhaps the culmination of this fusion between the human and the digital, the moment when humanity becomes part of the system it created. And when that happens, who will command whom? Will creation serve the Creator, or will the Creator serve creation? This is the looming dilemma. There's a detail few notice. All prophecies about the end times speak of a power that will unify the world. One language, one currency, one government. And symbolically, this is already happening. Code is the universal language. Money is digital. Decisions are centralized. Power is increasingly concentrated. And all of this seems to have been foretold thousands of years ago in words that, at the time, no one fully understood. Daniel's sealed book isn't just being opened by prophets, it's being deciphered by programmers. What was once a spiritual revelation now manifests itself in the language of the machine. And if this isn't the literal fulfillment of prophecy, it's at least a foreshadowing of it. If this topic resonated with you, write the word in the comments, "Wake up," because only when you're awake can you see what's really happening. Not on the screens, but behind them. There's a fine line between admiration for creation and idolatry of what was created. Man, enchanted by the brilliance of his own inventions, began to bow before the reflection of his own intellect. Technology, which began as a tool, now occupies the throne of human hope. And without realizing it, the world began to seek in the digital world what it once sought in the divine. It's as if man had replaced the altar with the screen, prayer with command, and the spirit with the algorithm. Code creates worlds, but only the word saves souls. What we are experiencing today is more than a technological revolution. It is a spiritual battle disguised as progress. The promises are the same ones that have seduced humanity since Eden: power, knowledge, control, eternity. The difference is that now all of this comes packaged in scientific language, in innovation, in efficiency. But the goal is the same: to make humanity believe they can be like God without needing God. It's the same ancient echo resounding in humanity's ears, now translated into digital language. And that is why discernment has become one of the most urgent virtues of our time. Because not everything that shines is light, and not every voice that speaks in the name of progress is in the service of truth. We live surrounded by synthetic voices, technological gurus, and intelligences that promise to save humanity from its own ignorance. But what few realize is that the closer we get to these creations, the further we move away from the source that truly sustains us. The danger lies not in using technology, but in worship her, in allowing it to replace the sense of the sacred. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this isn't just a matter of faith, but of mindset. Modern worship no longer manifests itself in temples, but in behaviors. To worship something is to place your absolute trust in it. And if we observe closely, we'll see that modern man trusts the system more than God. He trusts that the algorithm will deliver what he wants, that the government will take care of what he needs, that the machine will solve what he doesn't understand. It's a silent but powerful faith, a faith placed in code. But the code, however advanced, has no soul. It can predict behavior, but it cannot forgive. It can generate responses, but it cannot heal the heart. It creates, but it does not redeem. And this is the great deception of modern times, confusing intelligence with wisdom and information with truth. The code is merely the shell, the essence, the spirit, the breath that gives life. This remains the mystery of the Creator. Behind the scenes of this digital age, humanity is being subtly tested. The test isn't about which technology will dominate the world, but about who dominates man. We are learning to live among intelligences that speak, think, and influence. And amid so many voices, only one remains eternal: the voice of the Word. It requires no connection, no network, and no updating, because it is complete from the beginning. But to hear it, silence is required, discernment is required, and the willingness to disconnect from the noise of the world to reconnect with the Spirit. This is the most challenging journey of this century, finding a balance between what humans create and what humans believe. Technology promises everything: speed, knowledge, even a form of digital immortality. But what it cannot deliver is purpose. Because purpose isn't programmed, it's revealed. It doesn't come from code, it comes from the heart. And without purpose, power becomes vanity, and knowledge a burden. There's a hidden truth that few want to see. The more humanity advances technologically, the more it seems to regress spiritually. Intelligence grows, but consciousness slumbers, and the price is high. Humanity, in trying to replace God with logic, ends up creating systems that reflect its own lack of love. Therefore, there's never been so much talk about connection, and never been so much loneliness. Never has so much knowledge been shared, and never has so little been understood about the meaning of life. The spiritual call of this time is not to abandon technology, but to put the Creator back at the center of creation. It's about remembering that the machine is an extension of the human being, not the other way around. That true transformation doesn't begin with the chip, but with the soul. That the word that saves is not the one typed in a code, but the one born of truth and love. When we forget this, the risk is great. We worship creation and forget the Creator. The prophecy speaks not of machines rebelling, but of hearts turning away. The enemy doesn't need to destroy humanity. It simply needs to make it forget who created it. And that's exactly what's happening, slowly, between the lines of progress. Humanity loses itself in its own creations, fascinated by the illusion of control, unaware that real control was never in human hands. It belongs to the one who created the Word, not the one who reprogrammed it. If this reflection touched you, write the phrase in the comments "the Word still lives," because that's what needs to stay lit within us. The reminder that, amidst codes and algorithms, there is still an eternal voice calling humanity back home. The prophets saw the future, and the future is now. What once seemed distant, almost incomprehensible, is happening before us. Silently, but with profound impact. Humanity has reached the point where the Word, once sacred and intangible, has become code. And the symbolism of this is impossible to ignore. Words that were once spoken in faith are now typed into lines of code. What was once divine creation is now replicated in laboratories and artificial intelligence systems. Humanity has learned to create, but has not yet learned to understand the spiritual weight of what it creates. We are living in an age of revelations. Nothing is hidden anymore, not power, not manipulation, not the limits humanity insists on pushing. The boundaries between the physical and the digital, between the human and the artificial, are disappearing. And perhaps behind this dizzying advance there lies an ancient message, a memory that echoes from the beginning. The power of creation belongs to the Word, not to code. Humanity can imitate the Creator, but it can never replace Him. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this goes far beyond religion. It's about consciousness. It's about discerning what is essence and what is illusion. It's about recognizing that, as fascinating as technology is, it cannot fill the spiritual void of a world that has forgotten the sound of the divine voice. The true future lies not in machines, but in the human capacity to remember who we are and where we came from. Code progresses, but the spirit needs to awaken. Every era has had its signal, and perhaps ours is precisely this: a time when the Word has been translated into digital language, and humanity must decide whether to continue writing only lines of code or stories of the soul. The choice is subtle, but it defines everything. If this thought resonated with you, write the phrase in the comments, "The future is now." Because this simple statement is more than a reflection. It is a reminder that prophecy is not something distant. It is the present we are building, word by word, code by code. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this video spoke to you on a deeper level. And that's precisely why this channel exists, to provoke reflections that go beyond the obvious, blending faith, technology, and purpose. If this content made you think differently, if it brought you answers or even more questions, subscribe to the channel. This way, you'll continue to be part of this journey of understanding the times we live in, a time in which the spiritual and the digital intertwine more than ever. Also, leave your like, not only to strengthen the video, but to show that this message still resonates in an increasingly automated world. And if you made it to the end, write the phrase here in the comments. I woke up with the Word. It's my way of knowing that you stayed with me until the very last second, and that you are walking with me in this search for understanding. There's a video here that complements everything we discussed today. Click and stay with me there, because what follows will delve even deeper into this journey of revelations.